I'm not going to say too much more because we have a very, very distinguished person to honor, Rosa Whitaker. And her very good friend who has known her for more than 3 decades is going to tell you a little bit more about her. But all I can say is that she's another sister who I really admire. I love our sisters to the absolute max. Peace.
Thank you, Ambassador. Good evening to all our distinguished honorees, ladies and gentlemen in this beautiful audience. I have one correction. I am no longer the president and CEO of the Africa Society. A young Ugandan woman in Washington, D.C. is one of my mentees, but I'm a longtime Africanist, which is why I have the pleasure of knowing somebody who's a legend like Rosa Whitaker. I have the honor of introducing Rosa Whitaker, and we're going to show you a video, so you're going to know all about her achievements, that she's the mother of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, that she's brought over $8 billion of investment to Africa, that she's known as one of the top 100 global thinkers in this world in our time. Those are her achievements. But I want you to know some other things about Rosa Whitaker that won't be in this video that I know. And she's multifaceted like a diamond, you see. She's very unusual, and I'll tell you why. She has the courage to face down danger, and I've seen her do that in many African countries, and the compassion to embrace any stranger that she sees along the way. She is brilliant and a visionary. She's a friend of many heads of state, and yet she's also a friend of those without voice and power. We're from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, where people use millions of words without meaning many times. But not Rosa. Rosa is authentic and a straight talker. So I want to thank Face to Face Africa this evening for bestowing this honor on Rosa Whitaker, because she is so deserving, so that you cast a light on that beautiful face who's done so much for so many. And in doing so, you honor all of us in the Africanist community, for she is our hero, and she's been our champion for over 30 years. Thank you. Let's look at the video.
When it comes to the decisions that truly impact African nations, few people have had as impactful a voice as Rosa Whitaker. While she may not be a household name, Whitaker's tireless advocacy on the behalf of African trade, investment, and business over the past 3 decades has contributed to the creation of more genuine and organic economic opportunities across the African continent than any amount of direct foreign aid ever could. Following her graduation from American University in Washington, D.C., Whitaker embarked on an exemplary diplomatic career that saw her ultimately become the first ever Assistant United States Trade Representative for Africa under both President Clinton and President George W. Bush. In this role, Whitaker was instrumental in ushering to fruition the African Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, an American law that reduced the barriers to trade for African nations and companies seeking to send goods to the American market. Following her diplomatic career, she established the Whitaker Group in 2003, which is now the premier trade and business consultancy firm for Africa. Through the Whitaker Group, she has helped African nations enhance their trade and business relations with the U.S., consequently helping to increase direct foreign investment on the continent. Whitaker has had a tremendous impact on Africa's economy and remains one of the most powerful and influential women in African trade and U.S.-Africa business relations.
gentlemen, on behalf of Face to Face Africa, it is our honor to present the 2016 Trailblazer Award to Ms. Rosa Whitaker.
Wow, I don't recall a time when I have been in the room with so much diverse talent. Thank all of you. I am deeply honored. I want to just thank my dear friend Bernadette Palo. She's also a co-laborer in the cause for Africa. I want to thank Ambassador Lira. And I want to thank my family and friends who are here and the phenomenal team at the Whitaker Group who works hard every day, recognizing that our work for Africa is not a job, but rather a commitment. I have something just very short to say, but I just want to convey how deeply honored I am to be recognized as a trailblazer by such a trailblazing organization like Face to Face Africa. Sandra Apia and Isaac Boateng, the founders of Face to Face Africa, I applaud you for your groundbreaking platform. And, you know, they are really a wonder and a blessing to their generation, and I just love seeing them. I've been so inspired. My husband, Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams from Ghana, who so regrets that he couldn't join us this evening, but he said something very interesting and true. He says, if you leave this world without making a difference, you have robbed humanity. So thank all of you for making a difference. I've met so many phenomenal people. And as the late Elie Wiesel said, our lives no longer belong to us. They belong to all those who need us so desperately. You know, I was listening to some of the stories tonight, and it just reaffirmed what I've always believed, and that is that great things are only birthed through adversity. And when I look at the birthing of Face to Face Africa, Alessandra and Isaac, immigrants to the U.S. at a young age, they both felt the pangs of stereotypes and racism, and even from people who looked like them. And, you know, they could have chosen to do nothing. They could have become bitter. They could have believed those ugly words they heard. They could have retaliated with even uglier words. But they rather chose to do something. They turned their burden into a call. And despite the odds, despite the anger, when I read their story and I hear the story of other immigrants and other people and my own story and the story in our communities, despite the anger, they chose to do something. In Sandra and Isaac's case, they created Face to Face Africa. And Face to Face Africa understands the power of technology to bring us together in order to realize the Pan-African dream. If this is to be Africa's century, and I am fully convinced it will be, I think we agree on that, Africa people must be empowered to take charge of the African narrative. Every Renaissance, if we look in history, every Renaissance begins with a narrative, and the future of nations and people depend on who writes and believes the narrative. Not unrelated, but certainly key to the tragedies that we are witnessing across America, is this tendency to distance ourselves from those we don't know, and in the absence of familiarity and acquaintance, we fill in the blanks with assumptions and presumptions. which then take a life of their own and become directives for our interactions. This sense of otherness. The others are not as smart, the others are not as moral, the others are not as family-oriented, this sense of otherness. Tonight, I'd like us to seize this occasion created by Face to Face Africa to reaffirm our efforts to promote a common vision for the continent from which we all came and we all love. We don't have to, let me just say, we don't have to agree on everything. We just have to agree on some things. We have to agree that every child ought to have more than 5 birthdays. I mean, even now, nearly 1 in 10 African children never reach the age of 5. We should be able to agree that no continent has moved from poverty to prosperity through aid. Aid is important. Charity is important. Philanthropy is important. I've seen lives saved from it. But Africa needs more than that. No country has developed on that. You can't depend on that. And Africa will never rise on the charity and sympathy of strangers. And so, while the aid is important, it shows it's a part of our common humanity. I'm vice chair of a NGO. We do great work, Mercy Ships. I am first lady of a large African-based church. We have 300 churches around the world, actually, and 2,000 affiliate churches, and we are engaged in philanthropy, and that is very important. But Africa as a region will not rise, and African people will not be fully empowered through aid. And Africans should not be viewed as a charity case, but rather as partners in building a stronger, more inclusive global economy. We should all be able to agree that education should not be a hit or miss enterprise for Africa's children, especially its girls. And we should agree that every African has a God-given universal right to health, education, and a voice and a choice in regards to who will lead them. Now, we can agree, we all agree, I think we can agree that people need electricity for hospitals, industry, schools, and a decent quality of life. And the fact that nearly 600 million Africans have no access to power is shameful, and it can be changed. I think we can all agree to that. And even for some reason, even if we can't agree on any or all of this, disagreement should not be an excuse for disconnecting. Now, I am not promoting a negative narrative of Africa. It's only negative if we are without solutions and hope. But we are part of the solution, and we will not be defeated by the very real challenges that remain to be addressed. So I truly believe, and this is what inspires me every day, I truly believe that over the coming decades, and I'm even more convinced after tonight, Africa will unify and Pan-Africanists will unify politically and economically. Africa as a region will become an economic powerhouse. And I hope we have this tape because it's happening. And you're all going to think I'm a prophet. Africa will become an economic powerhouse powered by African education, innovation, ideas, and entrepreneurs. And I also believe that this is no longer a dream, but increasingly a promise that will benefit all humanity. So Sandra, Isaac, Face to Face, I'd like to thank you for this award. I'd like to applaud all those in your generation who are fighting to take back and own the Africa narrative. May God richly bless you and expand your voice. I'm deeply honored. Thank you so much.